Good morning and welcome to the 19th Annual Georgia Bioinnovation Summit. I'm Maria, President and CEO of Georgia Bio. This week, me and my team are coming to you from the nation's first 5G healthcare innovation lab. I would like to thank 1110 and User Insight for hosting us. With me today is Steve Gertz, co-founder and chief development officer at 1110 Innovation Partners. Steve, could you tell us a bit about 1110 and the work you and your partners are doing?
Thank you, Maria. And we are so excited about being here today and also just providing this space. 1110 really just powers strategy, innovation, and venture programs for Fortune 500 companies, healthcare systems, and also really high potential startups. And we're sitting right here today in our full service co-development 5G lab that's powered by Verizon. And it's located right here in Atlanta. We bring our partners together and their innovation roadmaps to life, whether it's building technology platforms, structuring partnerships, incubating new ventures, right here from the ground up. We work with healthcare systems to build their innovation programs by working with their clinical departments and understanding the workflows, technology needs, their patient-provider engagement, et cetera, so that we can really customize solutions that work best for them. This typically results in some digital programs and disease management platforms connected to the consumer with digital applications. And we also work with pharma companies, and those are our strategic partners and clients. We bring their digital platforms and therapeutic programs to life. We also power a major payers sensor program right here in this 5G co-development lab. So this really is an amalgamation of unique assets that lets us understand problems facing healthcare and the industry here as a whole, so we can co-develop comprehensive solutions that are validated and all right here in a clinical delivery setting. Our model is very unique, and it positions us perfectly to work between consumers, the healthcare systems, and industry partners and bring integrated digital solutions to life. Just a little bit about our strategic partner clients. They're some of the largest companies in the world: Cerner, Sharecare, Konica Minolta, Philips, Merck, Novo Nordisk, Stryker, Anthem, and Verizon. And our validation ecosystem with Mcmurray is really unique. It's very vast, and 1110 really exclusively operates the Mcmurray Healthcare Innovation Hub. And we work with their senior leadership to truly bring this innovation to life. So we're also even placing projects in healthcare systems all across the country. That's a little bit about 1110, but we are so excited about really partnering with Georgia Bio and their annual Innovation Summit. And we love aligning with Maria and her wonderful team. So enjoy this event.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you again for hosting us here this week. And thank you to all of our sponsors for supporting this week's event. A full listing of our champion, premier, Keynote, and other sponsors is available on the conference website. I encourage you to connect with their attendees and visit their booths. Now, to everyone working from home or possibly the office, while I'm sorry we cannot meet in person today, I'm delighted that we have the opportunity to come together virtually after a roller coaster ride of a year and election cycle, perhaps the most tumultuous we'll ever see in our lifetimes. With what looks to be a record voter turnout across the US, including in Georgia, yesterday and today continues to be an important day for our country, another step forward on the path to heal the nation's physical, economic, mental, and emotional health. Georgia Bio looks forward to working with the administration, whoever they will be, as well as our newly elected state and local officials on the challenges that lie ahead, getting through the pandemic and economic crisis, tackling climate change, healing our deep wounds resulting from centuries of racial injustice, and standing up for science. At the start of 2020, Georgia Bio launched a one-year strategic plan to foster innovation and growth of the life sciences ecosystem for a healthier world. We had 4 goals: establish the organization as the recognized leader in advocacy for life sciences in Georgia, engage members and the community to enable impactful relationships, be the singular voice and recognized resource for life sciences in the state, and finally, establish Georgia as a center for excellence in life science workforce training and talent. Of course, we had to change some of our plans this year, but to quote my colleague, Dr. Mcmurray, President and CEO of BioNTC, who you'll hear from in just a few moments, this is biotech's finest hour. And this is true in Georgia and nationwide. In just 8 months, we've seen the life sciences industry come together with unprecedented speed and collaboration to launch 800 vaccine, therapeutic, and diagnostic R&D programs targeting COVID, and the majority of them are in the US, including many right here in Georgia. We've also seen the industry show great resilience and adaptability, with companies creatively shifting their manufacturing and logistics to produce much needed PPE and sanitizers, and of course, collaborating with their business competitors so our world can get out of this crisis as quickly as possible. So thank you, and hats off to you, our members, the biotechnology, medical device, and other life science companies that have shown the world the best of our industry and our state. I'm inspired by you. I'd also like to thank our Georgia Bio team, in particular Christina Forbes, who have also adapted and shown impressive ingenuity to ensure we continue to support our members. You've truly stepped up. I know it hasn't been easy, but our organization is stronger for it. One thing I'd like to note about the team's effort is their work on our events. Part of our strategic plan was to launch new events this year, including a patient advocacy summit, a CRO/CMO manufacturing symposium, an event focused on agriculture, food, and industrial and environmental biotech. I'm proud to say that we successfully hosted over 100 healthcare providers, industry, elected officials, and patient advocates virtually on September 22nd for Georgia Bio's first ever patient advocacy summit. The ongoing COVID-19 pandemic has highlighted long-standing public health disparities that result in an inequitable healthcare experience across the patient community. The summit's speakers argued that these disparities will only be addressed through a commitment to social justice from industry leaders and meaningful engagement from patients and consumers. Unfortunately, all of our originally planned events couldn't go forward as intended, but we have significantly deepened our relationships with state legislators through COVID-related policy forums, and we quickly pivoted to include elements of our original event plans in this week's summit. I know everyone, regardless of what they do in the industry, looks forward to hearing from speakers like U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Sonny Perdue, Georgia Department of Public Health Commissioner Dr. Kathleen Toomey, and Dr. Seth Berkley, CEO of Gavi, the Global Vaccine Alliance. Looking ahead to 2021, we're planning for this new, strange environment to continue at least through the spring, and we'll continue to find ways to collaborate and engage with our members virtually. Our team has their work cut out for them, but I know we'll deliver. Finally, I want to recognize America's public health officials, including and especially the officials at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, who are located right down the street here in Atlanta, and one of the reasons Georgia Bio was founded 31 years ago. They, along with their colleagues at state and local agencies and other federal health agencies like the NIH, NIAID, and FDA, have always worked tirelessly to protect the health and safety of the American people, and they've continued to do so through the pandemic, even in the face of anti-science rhetoric, as well as personal attacks and threats. I just want to say to them, too, thank you. We appreciate you, we value your hard work and your partnership as we work together to get through this crisis. And I want you to know that our industry will continue to prioritize standing up for your work and for science. Now, before I turn over the virtual floor, I want to give you a few quick tips on how to make the most of the event and this moment in history. Finally, while I hope you'll all make some fruitful business connections and pick up some useful insights, I also hope this event can serve as a pick-me-up for your mental health. I encourage you to take this opportunity to use the event platform to catch up with an old friend or check in with a colleague you may have not seen in many months now. Remember, you can talk about things other than work or politics. Also, use our event hashtag #GABioSummit to share something you found inspirational this week, or maybe your I voted sticker if you were up all night watching the results and still have it on you, take a picture with that and post a quick tweet. Finally, after the event closes, I strongly encourage all of our members to get involved in Georgia Bio's advocacy efforts and ensure that you and your company have a seat at the table in the consequential policy discussions coming up next year. Join our Policy and Advocacy Committee and help us as we work in Washington and at the state capitol to pass legislation that is positive for the industry and defeat proposals that are detrimental to life science innovation in Georgia. If you'd like to get involved, just reach out to me directly. So thanks again to all of you for being here today, for your hard work and dedication in this challenging time. We have a lot of work ahead of us, but I know that science, your companies, and your innovation is what will carry us through. Now I'd like to turn it over to our conference chair, Everett Huckstra, President of Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health USA. BI has made a significant commitment to our state, and I'm personally grateful to him for his support since I've taken over the organization and for his leadership with this conference. Everett?
Thank you, Maria, and good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be with you all today and an honor to serve as the chair of the 2020 Georgia Bio Innovation Summit. My name is Everett Huckstra, and I have the privilege and the honor to serve as president of Boehringer Ingelheim's U.S. animal health business. For those of you who may not be familiar with Boehringer Ingelheim, aside from our unpronounceable name, and we do answer to BI, so thank you for using the shorthand there, Maria. We are a family-owned company with more than 50,000 employees focused on 3 different businesses. We're in human pharmaceuticals, where our common brands known to many of you might be Spiriva in COPD and Jardiance in type 2 diabetes. Biopharmaceutical contract manufacturing, making active ingredients for other pharma companies, and our animal health business, the one that I'm most interested in and is most present here in Georgia. Our animal health business has 10,000 employees worldwide, more than 3,000 here in the US, and 1,300 right here in Georgia, with our commercial headquarters located in Duluth in Gwinnett County. R&D and primary pet vaccine manufacturing is located in Athens, and our poultry vaccine manufacturing is located in Gainesville, the poultry capital of the world, here in Georgia, the poultry capital of the United States. Boehringer Ingelheim Animal Health is dedicated to the well-being of both animals and people. And that may sound strange to you for an animal health division of a pharma company, but we believe very sincerely that animals and people are connected in deep and complex ways, whether it be food animals that we enjoy as protein, or the pets that we enjoy in our households and in our neighborhoods, who are very much today a part of our families. We believe also that when animals are healthy, humans are healthier too. And by delivering value through innovation, we enhance the well-being of both in order to create a healthier tomorrow for our animals, for our people, and for our communities. Our animal health portfolio contains some of the most respected and widely used vaccines and preventive care offerings in the industry. And we also manufacture therapeutics to improve the lives of sick or aging animals that suffer from chronic and acute conditions. We're proud to be a sponsor of this 19th annual Georgia Bio Innovation Summit. It's, by the way, the largest summit to date, with more than 500 participants and more than 110 experts, speakers from the industry, academia, and from public policymakers. And I would suspect, Maria, this is our very first virtual summit. And so a big thank you to Maria and her team for being so agile to create this virtual environment for us to enjoy yet another Georgia Bio Summit. Bioinnovation, what an important focus on an important topic at a critically important time. We've all felt the impact of COVID-19 this year. It's demonstrated the significant impact a pandemic can have on our health, our livelihoods, our food supply, our economy, and yes, even on lives. Who better than we who are engaged in biosciences can have a greater impact on the well-being of our fellow humans and the animals entrusted to our care? If nothing else, 2020 has provided all of us in the biosciences industries with a clear vision, 2020 vision, if you will, toward our collective purpose to serve mankind with life-saving, life-changing, and life-enhancing healthcare. We salute the frontline workers, healthcare professionals, scientists, and all the others that are involved in this important global fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. Boehringer Ingelheim itself is committed to doing its part to fight COVID-19. We've started a phase 2 clinical trial on a targeted therapy that may help people with severe respiratory illness and who have contracted COVID-19. The goal is to reduce the need for ventilator support, improve patient recovery rates, and of course, ultimately save lives. We're also screening our extensive molecule library of over 1 million compounds to identify other potential candidates that could fight the virus. We're very pleased to be a part of Georgia's thriving biosciences community, and we're pleased to join you today for the 2020 Georgia Bio Innovation Summit. We would like to thank Georgia Bio for organizing the summit, especially organizing it virtually in these times, and look forward to our continued close collaboration with Maria and her team and the Georgia Bio group and our fellow companies in the industry. In fact, one of our scientists right here in Metro Atlanta, Cindy Edge, is joining the Georgia Bio Board of Directors as Vice Chair. And Cindy is the head of our Animal Health Global Innovation Regional Center for the Southeast, based right here in Georgia. So congratulations to you, Cindy. And what an engaging lineup Maria and her team have created for us in the next 3 days. I encourage you to get as much out of our time together as possible. Just to highlight some of the things that we have in store for you: 6 keynote speakers, sessions on topics that will resonate with so many of us in the biosciences community: collaboration in the COVID-19 crisis, opportunities and challenges for science and innovation in 2021, devices and data, impacts on the healthcare continuum, lessons from past successes in disease eradication, reimagining the future of life sciences and public health, and last but not least, preparing for the next pandemic, for indeed there likely will be one to follow this one at some point. You will not want to miss such things as the company showcase. Georgia-based companies that are developing or have developed bioscience products will present their technology. The innovation stage: see Georgia's best and most innovative minds present their ideas and their concepts. The science poster session: see some of the best and the brightest from our own Georgia colleges and universities present their research. And the pitch round: startups and seed companies will be pitching for cash prizes. We also have a number of breakout sessions focused on topics that include COVID in 2021 and beyond, biopharmaceutical and drug development, One Health, collaborative approach to ensuring human, animal, and ecosystem health. Love that theme. Medical device and digital health, and created an environment of diversity and inclusion. There's so much happening this week. I encourage you to be engaged in all of it. There's also speed networking that'll take place on day 2. That's tomorrow, organized by Women in Bio. So thank you to all the women who organized that session. And a career session on day 3 to match companies and job seekers with students. There's even a Pilates session, and boy, I know I could use that after COVID-15, gaining my COVID-20. There's even Pilates session before Friday morning's keynote address. I would encourage you to soak up as much of the conference as you possibly can. Maria, let's get started now, and I'll allow you to introduce our first keynote speaker. Thanks again, Maria, and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you, Everett. It certainly is shaped up to be an exciting event. Now on to our first keynote of the week. I'm honored to welcome Dr. Michelle Mcmurray, President and CEO of the Biotechnology Innovation Organization, for a conversation on the opportunities and challenges for science and innovation in 2020. Dr. Mcmurray assumed the leadership position of Bio in June of this year. A medical doctor and molecular immunologist by training, Dr. Mcmurray becomes just the 3rd chief executive to steward the world's largest biotechnology advocacy group since Bio's founding in 1993. Bio represents 1,000 life science companies and organizations from 30 countries. The organization's mission is to support companies that discover and deploy scientific breakthroughs that improve human health, environmental stewardship, and sustainable agriculture. The common thread in Dr. Mcmurray-Heath's work across academia, government, and industry has been our focus on broadening access to scientific progress so more patients from diverse backgrounds can benefit from cutting-edge innovation. Driven by her own past family experiences navigating clinical trials and funding uncertainties within the rare disease community, Dr. Mcmurray calls the distribution of scientific progress the social justice issue of our age. She comes to Bio from J&J, where she served as global head of evidence generation for medical device companies and then VP of Global External Innovation and a global leader for regulatory sciences. She spent 12 years working at the research bench before taking policy and leadership roles in government and industry, including with the Obama-Biden transition team and the FDA Center for Devices and Radiological Health under Commissioner Peggy Hamburg. Michelle, it's wonderful to have you join us today. Welcome.
It's wonderful to be with you here, Maria. It was a little bit of a late night last night, but happy to be here with you.
We all are not as rested as we could be, though I do think some people that joined our mindful meditation this morning got a little bit of a reset. But we're really excited to have you, so I thank you. I really appreciate you taking time on such a busy week for all of us. So I really appreciate you, what do you see as the greatest challenges facing the biotech industry, and what can we do as leaders in life sciences to tackle these challenges?
Well, let's start with the elephant in the room, which is the public perception of our industry. We've got amazing science. The science is progressing at an incredible, almost unbelievable rate. We've seen this really exemplified in our response to COVID. And yet we still struggle with how the public views what we do. And so we really see our role at Bio as attacking that head on and making sure we are speaking very clearly and consistently about how science is there for patients and consumers, standing up for any representation of the science or misinterpretation of the science, or even just falsehoods about the science, because it's so important that the customers and patients who rely upon our scientific research see us as unwavering in our pursuit of scientific progress. This is key to try to rebuild that bridge of trust with the public, but we've got a lot to do. But I think it's within our grasp, but we have a lot to do.
Great, thank you. I think we all really do need to remain unwavering in making sure truth about science is of the utmost importance. So how has the pandemic changed the conversation about science and innovation? I think we all have our feelings on this, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I think it's been clear to many of us who care about this space that it's given the world a front row seat to what we do. The general public is invested in the rate of scientific progress in a way that they have rarely been in the past. And they're getting to see the promise and the setbacks and the ups and downs that we know are to be expected in scientific research. And that's incredibly important because it helps us illustrate that science is not a guarantee. It's not, you don't put, $10 in here and get drug A out there. You really have to invest in the great ideas. You have to try many things that may or may not work. And you have to keep on going when you get discouragement or setbacks. Perhaps that's a very a good frame to keep in mind today. So this is going to be critically important as we go forward because it will help us explain the value of innovation. That when you do get that drug A out at the other end, or that agricultural product B out that really changes how people deal with their illness or getting food on the table or the climate, it's because a huge amount of work has gone into it on the back end, work that until COVID has largely been invisible. And so this is so key as we start to re-engage the public in this dialogue. If we look at those 800 research development programs that have been started to combat COVID since the beginning of this year, and the 191 COVID vaccine development programs that are underway, and how even though it's gone incredibly quickly, we're still dealing with a handful of possibilities right now. And some of those may still drop off and not work. So that, I think, is a very important teachable moment for us about the work that we do. The son of the leader of Mass Bio has cystic fibrosis, and I love the quote he gave to his father where he said, I feel like the average American now knows what it feels like to wait on a cure. And that, I think, is very, very important for us to remember and for us to stress and make clear.
No, those are great, and I've known Bob up at Mass Bio for many years. In fact, he was our keynote 3 or 4 years ago. So
Wonderful.
we're very familiar with Bob's story, and I'm grateful to consider him a friend. I think his message about the relatability now everyone has to what we go through in the industry and his, of course, his patients is very valuable. So I appreciate his leadership along with yours, of course. And I would even add that, the pandemic is proving as an opportunity to combat some of the misconceptions about public perception of the industry. To your first comments.
Mm-hmm.
So in light of COVID, where is the industry going now that data plays a bigger role in regulatory decision making? We have a lot of medical device in Georgia, and we have a lot of data partnerships with Microsoft expanding significantly, and frankly, Atlanta becoming a pretty big tech hub in the country. I think it's in the top 5 now. So really like to understand how data is playing a bigger role in regulatory decision making.
So this is just a personal interest area of mine, and as well, I just think it's such an interesting time. Before COVID really consumed a lot of our attention, there was a lot of conversation about how real world evidence can change the way we judge whether or not our new medical products work as we expect and intend. And that has not changed. And even though we're not maybe talking about it quite as much as we were a couple of years back, we're actually seeing it in practice in the real world, in a way, real world evidence in the real world, in a way that we probably would have waited several years more to see had it not been for COVID, because the constraints of COVID are forcing our regulators to find new ways to judge medical innovation. And so they are open to new data partnerships. They are open to innovative clinical trial design. They are open to remote monitoring. They are open to sensors in a way that they have been a little bit reticent to be to date. And so this is incredibly good news. And I know as we're just kicking off the every 4-year user fee negotiation, where we set the course of the US Food and Drug Administration for the next 4 years, and we're kicking off that process this summer, we are being very careful at Bio to make sure that all of the gains in flexibility and creativity and willingness to partner that we've seen from our regulatory agencies under COVID become institutionalized and are used not just for the COVID space, but that we share those gains with every therapeutic area. So this is going to be a very critical season that we're going into over the fall and the winter, to make sure that all of these advances that we've seen in regulatory speed and flexibility continue.
Yeah, that's great. That's a really important message. And but to put it simply, and to quote Judy Monroe, the president and CEO of CDC Foundation, during one of our conversations with her, data is king. So we really need to keep thinking about that as we continue to persevere through this crisis. Over the past century, the role for patients in medical research has expanded dramatically, and today there are increasing opportunities for patients to serve as active partners in defining and prioritizing research strategy. During your time at the FDA, you led a team tasked with defining a new role for patients in the regulation of medical devices and diagnostics. What can the industry do to advance the science of patient input and ensure new technologies and treatments align with patient needs?
Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting and evolving area. And it's an area right now where, at least at the US Food and Drug Administration, the device area is a little bit ahead of, and device and biologics are a little bit ahead of what we see, for example, in drug regulation. And I say that because those two centers, biologics and devices, have really moved forward with this paradigm called patient preference. So it's not just about asking patients in general, what would you like to see today? Or bringing a group of patients together and saying, what's really missing? What are the areas you really want to see researched? Those kinds of conversations are critically important. And most of our companies know that and have been having those conversations for decades. And they know that patients are a critical part of the design process and on mapping out those unmet medical needs. But what's needed from a regulatory point of view is also to make sure that we have a reproducible and quantitative way to take what patients are seeking and insert that into the judgment of new medical products. So what do I mean by that? It's not just enough to have anecdotes about a patient wanting this benefit or a patient fearing this adverse event. It's really important to go in and measure and ask patients specifically what they want. And this is for several reasons. There was a study from the European Medicines Association about a decade ago showing that on average, regulators were more conservative when they were speaking on behalf of patients and choosing which medical products to let through than the patients would be themselves. So that's saying that they're being overly cautious on behalf of the patients. And then we did research that actually showed that not only were regulators overly cautious, but they were choosing different benefits on behalf of patients than the patients really wanted to see themselves. So it's really important for us to remember that we do not walk in the shoes of the patients. I mean, most of us are patients or will be patients. And for those experiences in our lives, we totally understand. But patient populations are not monolithic. We cannot presume to know what patients fear or what patients really want. So it's important for us to go out and survey and ask and really know what is important to a certain patient population and to infuse that judgment, those desires into what we regulate and how we regulate.
No, thank you.
Sorry, I'm sounding like a regulator again. It's hard. once you grow up like that, it really
certainly
gets
think
in
our
your
audience
blood.
finds that quite valuable, and I really appreciate those comments. We, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we had our first ever patient advocacy conference this year, and we launched a patient advocate alliance, which we're going to host quarterly meetings, just to start to just complement basically what that message you just spoke to, and make sure we're starting to connect industry with our patient populations here, especially in this climate we're in right now. So I'm hoping that new group that we're convening over the next year, hopefully for the end of the year for the first time, and quarterly starting next year, it'll be an opportunity for our companies and our researchers, especially young entrepreneurs, to learn firsthand why that's so important. So thank you for that message.
Of course. You know, we're really in like this golden age of patient advocacy. We have such incredibly informed and connected patients. You know, social media has allowed patient communities to connect in ways that we couldn't have dreamed of 10 or 15 years ago. And so we just have to take advantage of all that great knowledge and that community to really help inform everything we do in biotechnology.
Yeah, as you said, most of us are patients except capacity. Sometimes we have to remember that, put ourselves in those shoes, or at least hear from those people that we're trying to serve. So that's really important. So thank you for that message. So I want to pivot a little bit to some policy questions and evidence-based science. So evidence-based science is the surest basis for fair and just public policy, but that is predicated on the integrity of that evidence and the scientific process used to produce it, which must both be transparent and free from political bias and pressure. How would bio work to support the same or new administration to foster a culture of scientific transparency and accountability in government while protecting scientists and federal agencies from political interference in their work?
Yeah. So let me start by saying political interference with science is not a one-party issue. We've seen it through the decades on both sides of the aisle. It is very tempting, I think, for politicians to think that it's easy to tweak the science or push the science to meet their own political ends. This happens in every season. But that's why it's even more important that those of us who work with the science every day, who trained as scientists, who work on behalf of patients and consumers who really, really need what we're researching and what we're discovering, stand up when we see a misuse or a misappropriation of the science. It's so critically important. So over the summer, you saw Bio, for example, stand up to the US Food and Drug Administration in one example to ask them to make sure that they're releasing all guidance and direction to COVID vaccine manufacturers that they can, so that our companies know what's expected of them. This is not that unusual. I mean, it was a little bit more public because it was based in the COVID space. But we as an industry are always looking for clarity and certainty when it comes from regulators and from government gatekeepers, because it's so important as we're mapping out all the scientific uncertainties that we know what policy gauntlets we have to run. So this is uh, research and development 101. We want to map out with as much certainty as possible what's going to be required and how we get there. So it's very, very important for us to stand strong as an industry and make sure we are standing up for that. The other thing we were very, very clear about is that our companies are very committed to doing science at the very highest level of quality. This is something that we also work with every single day. All of our companies are working as hard as we can to make sure our science is as rigorous, as well tested, and we're as confident in it as we possibly can be before it comes to market. But we wanted to make sure that we at Bio were raising that flag and making it clear to the public how important this is to our everyday operations. So it's not rocket science. It's nothing that's incredibly new, but I think it is a posture towards science that the public doesn't always see that we have, and they need to know that we are as committed to the science as they would want us to be.
No, definitely. It's, I think this complements my next question really well. It's not just at the federal level. We have to continue to educate and make sure that we're communicating to our policy leaders that the integrity of science and how that is of the utmost importance to our industry. But so at Georgia Bio, we remain actively engaged in government relations and work closely with our partners at Bio and others to monitor important policy updates. This is an opportunity for our members to really get engaged and be that voice on behalf of the industry with us and allow and support us in what we do as an organization. So from your perspective, what role can member companies play in government relations and advocacy, not just at the federal level like with Bio and other similar organizations, but with Georgia Bio and frankly my counterparts around the country?
That is such an important question today, perhaps more than any other day, because I think what was clear from yesterday, and there's a lot that's still unclear, is that we have a very divided country, and there is not going to be a clear strategy for us to recover on a health, economic, or scientific or educational front in the near future. Our industry is better poised than any others to provide that clarity and that sure path. We can stand up, for example, for STEM education and really make sure we're supporting those efforts in our local communities, like I know Georgia Bio has been doing so beautifully for years. We can provide those great paying jobs and pathways to economic development that are going to be needed in all of our communities to recover from where we are today with COVID. We can end the pandemic and find a solution that brings more people to health and brings us out of our fear of this illness. So on almost every front you look at, our industry has the roadmap to succeed. And, politics aside, let the politicians do their thing over here. But our industry is really the industry that is going to build the road for us to recover and to grow. And so I just hope that our companies retain that focus that I already know they have, but also rebuild the pride in the work that we do. And, their confidence in what we have to contribute to the American and global future, because it is huge and your country needs you now more than ever. And so this is really, really important. I am so proud of all of our member companies and our state bioscience associations for the work that we do every day. And I just want everyone to hold their head high and keep on keeping on, because it's so very important.
No, and I echo your thanks. Very proud to be able to represent our community here in Georgia and continue supporting Bio and its work, of course. It's important, and like I said earlier, I think despite how terrible this crisis is, there is an opportunity for us as an industry to, when we get here, this not if, and when we leave, we, finish mapping this roadmap to success. Hopefully we're able to combat some of those misconceptions too in the public perception of the industry on top of it. So we'll just keep our heads down in science, and I guess you and I will keep speaking on behalf of the industry and making sure we're sticking to science and setting a good example of what the industry can do and what that roadmap looks like. So so we just have a couple more questions. I know we're coming up on time, and it's a bit of a pivot from the policy side of things. Oh, and I do want to thank you for mentioning our STEM work. It's something we're very proud of. We're one of only 5 states with this robust of a STEM program to build a workforce in life sciences. So we're very proud of that. So I appreciate you acknowledging it. It's been a lot of hard work on our policy and advocacy committee in particular the last 3 years, and our leaders that are invested in STEM training and workforce building. So thank you for that. But finally, as a woman leader in biotech, what advice might you share with our female students and young leaders in our audience perusing careers in the biotech field? You've had a very interesting background and a very inspiring career. So what words of wisdom can you give to our crowd?
Well, I think science is one of those great level playing fields. It's really about your curiosity and following the questions that really keep you up at night. And that could be a scientific question at the bench, or it could be a policy question about how the science gets used. But I think it's a curiosity-driven field, and a one that needs creative, new, and diverse approaches to answer the questions and get to the destination. And so that puts those who are coming at questions from a new point of view at a relative advantage. So I think it's a fantastic place for people who think outside of the box, regardless of what the color and shape of that box may be, to really be recognized for their intellectual curiosity. So I just say keep on keeping on, and make sure that you are following your curiosity at all times. That is really, when I've had to make career transitions in my life, it was because there was a question that kept keeping me up at night that was really, really exciting to me to follow. So for example, when I was at the lab bench, I loved it. I did an MD PhD at Duke, so I was not too far away from Georgia for almost a good decade. Loved the work at the bench, but one of the questions that kept nagging at me was, well, how do the funding decisions get made on which science projects get NIH funding, and which areas of the National Institutes of Health get more funding than others, and how does the individual taxpayer get to weigh in on those decisions, or is even aware of those decisions? And that curiosity took me to a science policy fellowship that then took me to many other interesting doors that opened. So I just really stress, look for the people who you think are having a good time. They're doing the type of work that you see yourself doing in the future, and ask them about their path, but also always follow those questions that you think are really, really puzzling and interesting.
No, that's a great message. Definitely stay curious and taking diverse approaches. That's outstanding. And I would just add, don't be afraid to take the first step. We have a long-standing emerging leaders network, which was spun out of Emory University, I think 15 years ago now, that we manage. And it's a young professionals and student group that really, we work as an organization to help through BPR ELN to connect and inspire young people and people early in their careers to connect with industry and get inspired and stay curious and make those career growth decisions. So definitely all my ELNers take home the message that Dr. Michelle just spoke to. So I know we're up on time. I'm going to sneak in one last question. It's not a hard one, I promise. But I want to end on a really positive note for our industry and our members here. There is unprecedented collaboration going on between biotech, public health, governments, and technology companies. How, in your opinion, do you think that may impact the industry for the better beyond COVID once we're past this?
Well, it's all for the good, because there are no easy questions left. All of the scientific challenges we're fighting today, be it global warming, which I know biotechnology is really, really important, in finding alternative fuels, whether it's food deserts and good nutrition and fighting hunger, where our agricultural partners in biotech are so critical, or whether it's finding big data to answer those questions, where it's really about marrying the technology to the biotechnology to find solutions. No matter what side of this prism you're on, it's really important that we are partnering together, because it takes all those different perspectives and disciplines and points of view to find the answers that remain. But it's great that even in this age of COVID, where we're not traveling and able to be with each other in person, we're still able to connect. We're still able to share ideas. Bio set up a COVID hub, which was kind of like a Craigslist for COVID, so that researchers could say, oh, if you have this wet lab capacity, can I marry it to your manufacturing capacity? All of those sorts of things. And that kind of global sharing, that kind of shrinking of the world and being able to communicate with each other is what is really going to accelerate the growth in our industry. And I'm just incredibly optimistic to see what comes next.
No, definitely. And I certainly, collaboration is going to be needed, because as Everett said, once we get through this crisis, it's the only possibility will be another. So I appreciate your words. I just want to, is there anything you would like to leave us with before I sign us off from the session?
Just that this is such a wonderful and important time to be in science and to see what biotechnology is going to unlock. So, it's a tumultuous time for so many, and it's been hard leading teams that are sometimes working remotely, particularly in our industry, where we often have a hybrid mix of people who are still in the lab with other folks that are working remotely. But even though it's been a challenge to running our businesses, and even though we've been called upon to really help the world recover, the future is going to be brighter than where we are today. And our industry is going to be so key to that. So I thank you all for your dedication and for sticking through it, through this process of 2020, which will just be a life-changing year for so many. But just be proud of what you've contributed over the year, because it's been seen by so many facets of policymakers in the globe. So I'll just leave it with that.
No, thank you. I couldn't say it any better myself. So thank you. I'm not going to add anything to that. I really appreciate you taking the time today, Dr. McMurray. I know you're extraordinarily busy with the election results continuing to come in, which will likely to continue to come in for the next few days. So thank you for your leadership. Thank you to you and your team. I know that it is a large team at Bio that helped keep us in the industry at the forefront of DC minds and hopefully making wise decisions. So for my attendees, this closes out our first keynote of the day. We have another keynote in about an hour, I think, which will be a really exciting keynote. We're welcoming, it'll be a COVID vaccine conversation with senior executive leaders on the vaccine from Pfizer, Sanofi, and Janssen. So, and that event is being powered by EY. So please join us for lunch. It's a very important conversation. And I also want to put on your radar on Friday morning, when we have the Commissioner Toomey and other remarks from Secretary Perdue, we will have a very special announcement from the Center for Global Health Innovation on a project we've been working on for quite some time. So it'll be a special announcement. Stay tuned. It's a big deal for our community, and I think it'll really speak to how we in Atlanta and in Georgia are working to break down the silos and barriers between biotech, life sciences, and global health. So thank you all again. We'll see you throughout the week. And I'll just leave you with Michelle's message of stay curious.